Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting of Wednesday, July 8th, 2009. For those of you that are new to the process, welcome. And we are a group of volunteers that have been appointed by the Town Council to make land use decisions for the town. We do not make policy. We simply administer and make decisions based on the policy set by the Town Council. So we welcome you tonight. If anyone would like to speak on an item on the agenda, please fill out a card. Even if you are the representative, we ask that you fill out a card, mark the agenda item in the top right corner, and pass it to staff on your right. If you would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, you can do so under verbal communications. You can indicate that on your agenda number section. And please realize that the Commission is unable to take any action on items raised during public verbal communications. And just as a reminder, before we get started, if you could silence your cell phones. Thank you. So, Ms. Rooney, can we have a roll call?
Thank you. Yes. Commissioner Erickson?
Here.
Commissioner Sayak?
Here.
Commissioner Talasfor?
Here.
Vice Chair Bourgeois?
Here.
And Commissioner Jensen and Machichi and Chair O'Donnell all have excused absences, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, of which we have none this week. Is that correct?
Yes, we had technical difficulties with Granicus and with our broadcasting, and so the minutes are taking longer to transcribe.
So we'll probably get double minutes at the next meeting.
Yes.
All right. Written communications, we did have one desk item that was pertaining to item 4. It was a copy of the community benefit policy. Thank you for staff for providing that upon my request. And next we have requested continuances. Item 2, which is 26 Alpine Avenue, Architecture and Site Application S-04-64, and Negative Declaration ND-07-147. They're requesting a continuance to August 12th, 2009. Do we have any commission comment or a motion? Commissioner Sayak?
I move to continue item number 2 at 26 Alpine Avenue, application S-0464, to the meeting of August 12th.
Do I have a second?
I'll second
Commissioner Talasfor? All those in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0 with the 3 absences. Moving on to subcommittee reports. Do we have any subcommittee reports since our last meeting?
No.
Okay, none. I have one. The General Plan Committee meeting attempted to meet earlier today. We did not have a quorum. We met anyway. Since we did not have a quorum, we did not make any decisions. We did not vote, but we did discuss the below market price housing policy as well as the housing inventory. So those items will be coming back to the General Plan Committee since we did not have a quorum. Next is verbal communication. So this is anyone's chance that would like to speak on items that are not on tonight's agenda. As of now, I only have one card. So if anyone else would like to speak, please get me your card now. Citizen Ray, you're up.
Yes. Good evening. As you will remember at the last meeting, I gave you my concerns about the drive to finance city funds, town funds, by land use approvals, okay? And I said how sad it is to see that, because the town of Los Gatos is now receiving some $8 million a year, this year, for property taxes, okay? And that's within $1 million of the normal main funding of the community, okay? Normal funding is from retail sales, throughout the state of California, particularly here in Los Gatos. It has been with the downtown area. But it's now 9 million. It's only 1 million more than the property taxes. That's unreal. Literally unreal. And I want to tell you what that translates in, as far as I'm concerned. A week ago Saturday, I'm down in Winchester at Dave's Avenue. I want to go to the Double D's, okay? So I drive down North Santa Cruz. It takes me 15, 20 minutes of stop-and-go traffic to get from Dave's Avenue on Winchester down to Highway 9 Double D's. Unbelievable. And you're a witness to all the degradation of what is happening in this town, in my opinion, okay? This approval of the 20 or 19 new homes on Caldwell, with its 200 brand-new car trips a day. You got this approval of the Sandhill development on Gateway and Los Gatos Boulevard, which is going to result in 2,000 additional car trips per day into the heart of Los Gatos. And the only one in the town council that appears to be concerned is Barbara Spector. Okay? The rush for the dollar bill is on. And we see up in the mountain where DeSantis was given approval to bulldoze and rape the mountain by 3 members of the town council, Brzezinski and McLump mainly, okay? His project is dead. Nothing is happening, nothing. The mountain sits raped up there with nothing happening.
Thank you, Citizen Ray.
So everybody needs to wake up to save the town.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak under verbal communications? Seeing no one else, we're going to move on. And we do have one item tonight on our consent calendar. That is 540 North Santa Cruz Avenue, Suite F. It's a conditional use permit application requesting approval of a conditional use permit to operate a dance studio on property zone C1. Does any member of the public or the commission wish to pull this item from the consent calendar? Seeing none, does the commission have any? Can I get a motion? Commissioner Tosfor.
Thank you. Move to approve. Sorry.
I move to approve 540 North Santa Cruz Avenue, Suite F, conditional use permit application U-09-001, requesting approval of a conditional use permit to operate a dance studio on property zone C-1 APN 529-07-095. I think it meets the findings, but there aren't any listed. No, we don't need any. So it's on consent. So I would.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Commissioner Erickson. Any comments? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? None. Passes 4-0. Moving on. We have one continued public hearing, and that would be item number 3, 14680 Quito Road, Architecture and Site Application S-09-005. Do we have a staff report?
Assistant Planner Marty Mosley will be presenting the report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Since the Planning Commission meeting on June 24th, the applicant and property owners have met with the staff several times to discuss the changes made to the proposed design. The proposed changes intended to mitigate the neighbors' concerns in regards to the visibility of the garage and the art studio. And those changes include increasing the proposed 3-foot setback to 5 feet at both the garage and the art studio as they abut the property lines. They're also proposing to provide 12 evergreen trees between the garage and the rear property line and 14 additional evergreen trees between the art studio and the side property line. They've also reduced the size of the attached trellis to the art studio and as such moved that structure an additional 2 feet towards the back property line so that they're increasing that distance between the existing cabana and the proposed art studio. The property owner provided this modified site plan and art studio design to the neighbors on Monday, June 29th, along with a description of the changes and how directly they felt the changes mitigated the neighbors' concerns that they addressed at the Planning Commission meeting. In response to that information, staff did receive one letter from Mr. Pope, who lives at 120 Montclair Road. The letter was given to the property owner on June 30th, and the property owner gave that to us with his packet of information that is addressing that was forwarded to the Planning Commission. It's in your staff report. Staff also later received a very similar letter from Mr. Pope on July 2nd, and that was received just prior to packet delivery or packet finalization, but that was able to be included in your staff report as well. Mr. Pope requested that Mr. Wagner provide a visual of the proposed height of the structure, and the property owner has placed poles at the peak and the eave closest to Mr. Pope's property to represent the height of that structure. The property owner does have pictures of that if you would like to see them. Staff discussed with Mr. Pope his stated concerns about visibility and impairment to his property, and Mr. Pope still does not feel that the changes proposed mitigate his concerns. Based off the information provided to staff, the increased setback and landscape screening, once established, should screen the art studio and the garage from their neighbor's view. This concludes staff's additional information. If I'm here if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Telesfor.
I have a question. What is the requirement for a setback?
3 feet.
3 feet?
In any R1 zone, they are allowed to go up to 3 feet from the property line.
Okay, and just for my own review, can you review the height of those evergreen trees that the applicant will be planting, the highest height that those will grow? I know they're in the report, but
If I could jump in, I believe they varied from 10 to 25 or 10 to 20.
10 to 20 feet,
Yeah, and 10 to 25 there were 3 different species.
10 to 25. And so just one more follow-up question. The height of the garage will be,
I think on the plans it says 12 feet.
of the garage? Okay.
I'll look at it again. Hold on. Sorry, when these get scaled down, they get pretty small to read.
Okay.
I believe I remember the art studio was 12 feet 11 inches. It was just under 13.
And I think that's the tallest one because it has
a peaked roof.
a peaked roof and not a flat roof.
Okay, well, maybe we can get the applicant to confirm the height of the
The architect
the
should be
garage,
able to
yeah.
confirm that.
Any other questions? I have a question of staff. So the letters from Mr. Pope were the only direct feedback that staff got from neighbors?
Correct, staff or the property owner.
Okay, and I'm sure we'll hear more tonight, but in Mr. Pope's letter, in both of them, he referred to the inadequacy of a 3-foot setback. Was he aware that it had gotten moved to 5?
I did comment on that. I went through all that with him. There were several things that Mr. Pope didn't comment on, and as far as landscaping, he didn't mention that in his letter as far as that mitigating it.
Because when I read his letter, it was almost like he didn't know that those changes had occurred. So I was just making sure that he had been made aware of them.
They were spelled out in the property owner's letter to him as well as in the plans, and staff did convey that to him as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of staff at this time? All right, let's go ahead and open the public hearing and start with the applicant. I believe it's going to be Mr. Dennis Hayes representing the applicant. Mr. Hayes, if you could just introduce yourself, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Dennis Hayes, 15048 Brewster Avenue, San Jose. And yes, the basic purpose of this meeting was to address those concerns. Aside from the setbacks and the heights, the trees, the evergreen trees that we have placed on the lot are going to be local trees. They're prescribed by local arborists. And in addition to that, there's 5 trees that there's going to be removed, other trees from the lot, and the owner has opted to provide 2 additional trees to replace each one of those 5 trees. As far as the story poles, I do have a photo of the art studio.
You can take the microphone with you if you need to.
So this is the existing storage shed that they have on the lot right now. This is the lowest point, which is going to be 9 foot 6 inches approximately from grade. The current peak of this roof is 8 feet in the shed. Of course, now we're back to 5 feet. Additionally, because we're shortening the arbor structure on this art studio, it's going 2 feet forward, which brings it more in line with the neighbor's arbor or trellis structure, which is actually 8 feet high, and it goes along the back fence. And in addition to that, like it was noted, all the trees that are going to be placed as screening are going to be at 5 feet on center. Some of those trees also have a larger spread. They'll have 10 to 15 foot spread, so they'll actually fill in that 5 feet adequately as far as the privacy between that structure.
Does that conclude your comments?
It does.
Okay, thank you. We have questions of the applicant. Commissioner Telesfor.
Just getting back to the trees again, you said a 5 foot spread. Is that in diameter?
The trees are actually going to be placed at 5 foot on center each tree.
Right. And can you tell me how high they could grow? Is that right, at 20 to 25 feet?
They're going to be, there's 3 different trees. One is a lemon bottle brush, which has a height of 10 to 25 feet. The hopseed bush is 12 to 15 feet, and the blue bush is 12 to 20 feet. The hopseed bush and the blue bush also have a spread of ranging anywhere from 10 to 15 foot overall diameter to
so
each tree.
They would also then go over to the neighbor's yard?
Well, they would need to be trimmed, but they would overlap.
Neighbor would have to trim them. Is that what you're saying? They would
I would assume the
plant it
homeowner
close
would.
enough to the, okay.
Right.
That's all for now.
Commissioner Sayak, did you have a question too?
Actually, I do. Mr. Hayes, do you mind putting your picture back up on the art studio? So on this picture, do you have where the current, well, I should say the proposed height of the art studio will be? Are those poles indicative of?
This right here is going to be the approximate 12 foot 11 height.
Please use the mic if you don't mind. Thanks.
For the roof peak only, this is going to be the height, so it'll continue to the length of the art studio. And then this is the actual wall height on that side. The wall height will be this high on this side. It will also be the same height on this side.
Okay, and then if you could, again, using that diagram, point out where the chimney would be, and it's 15 feet?
The chimney will be at this end.
Okay.
It's going to be at the far end, even more screened by the trellis or arbor structure.
Okay. And so from what I understand on one of the drawings that was attached on Exhibit 12, you're actually cutting off part of the trellis on the east side so that you can push it,
That's correct. It was 12 feet, now it's 10 feet,
the trellis.
the trellis itself.
Now, will that make the art studio basically flush with the neighbor's own trellis?
From what we can tell, it's probably going to still extend out, I would say approximately 2 to 3 feet beyond this direction or west of their trellis.
Okay. And your understanding is their trellis is at how many feet?
It's approximately 8 feet high, and it's up against pretty darn close to the fence, if not right against the fence.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Mr. Hayes, I would like for you to, if you could confirm the height of the garage. That question had come up earlier.
The parapet wall in the garage is going to be approximately 12 feet from grade.
And again, that's a 5 foot offset with the same,
Correct.
with the same tree
Correct.
species planted in that
They're
setback.
going to alternate the 3 different species, and they're going to be 5 feet on center.
Okay, great. Thank you. You'll have a chance to rebut at the end.
All right, thank you.
So I have a few cards. Anyone else wishing to speak, please turn them in. Each speaker will have 3 minutes, and the first card I have is Dennis McCarney.
I received Mr. Wagner's letter, and I don't have any issue with the trees that are going up. I mean, they're okay, that's fine. I still do have an issue with the setbacks, and my response to him was that he's proposing 5. I'd like to see 10 feet. I know that's probably not reasonable, but having something right up against a fence, there's going to be a wall of buildings right across the back there. No matter how many trees you put up, there's going to be a wall of buildings. And although I'm sitting off to the side, I do look out my family room window at that view. And so I will be impacted by this building that's going up there. And I appreciate the trees, but considering how big this property is, they have a lot of room to work there. And there's really no reason to jam this up against the neighbor's fence. I mean, that's a big piece of property. You could locate buildings all over that place and still not come near neighbor's fences. So I still kind of object to the setback.
Thank you. Does that conclude your remarks? I think it looks like we have a question for you. Commissioner Telesfor.
Yeah, hi. Can you show us where your house is?
Yeah.
You need to take the
This is me
microphone.
over here. This is the
Yeah.
Pope.
Please use the mic, yeah.
Hello? Yeah. Okay, this is me over here, and this is the Pope. So right now I look at part of the, shed that became a cabana, and then this side over here, which you can't see from the trees, I look at that too. So I'm looking at kind of 2 walls here. And so I'm kind of concerned that now I'm going to, trees or no trees, there's big walls there.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Commissioner Sayak.
Is it Mr. McCarney? Is
Yes.
that it? From your backyard,
Yes.
can you see the art studio? Or is it primarily the cabana that would block
I
it?
see, right now I'm sorry. Right now I see it as cabana.
Okay.
Looking, my family room's over here and my deck's here, and looking this way now, I see pretty much nothing. I see sky.
Do you see the poles?
I've seen,
indicating
yes,
where
I
the
do
height
see the
would be?
poles that have now gone up. I didn't know there was really anything there until one day I was looking over there and saw orange poles, and I'm going, okay. Because most time I look up there and you just got trees and you got blue sky, and you don't really notice the top of the building that much.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Telesfor.
Yeah, I have one more question, Mr. McCready. You said you look up, and I did visit the homes
Okay.
today, and there is a raised area. You are below their grade, is that correct?
I'm, well, I don't know, mine kind of goes like this, so we're probably pretty even in the corner.
Okay,
In this corner, I would say we're probably fairly even, and maybe a little bit higher, but I think we're, in the corner here. Back here, it's probably, probably a little bit lower.
okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. McCarney. Next speaker I have is Harry Laughlin. For the record, it should be noted that Mr. Laughlin is handing out pictures for the commission.
Speaking to the first picture, it shows the tape is 12 feet from our grade level, and 4 feet above the fence. But our grade level is 2 feet below the Wagner property. Their grade is approximately the bottom of the fence. So this makes it equivalent to about a 14-foot structure as far as we're concerned from our vantage point. This is the this is the same picture with the wall put in, which is what we're going to see when the garage goes up, if the garage goes up. The only difference will be that all those trees in the background will be gone. They will be wiped out by the garage. And this wall only shows half of our backyard. From a different angle, you can see that white post is about where the white wall stops on the right. And so it's going to go the full length of our backyard. And in the wintertime, the trees on the right are deciduous, so 6 months out of the year, we're going to see the whole garage, whether we want to or not. And the last picture shows that looking through the pictures 1 and 2, you can see the Santa Cruz Mountains in the background, which we'll no longer see. That orange tape at the top is where that wall will stop. So.
Thank you. Does that conclude your
Yes.
comments? Do we have any questions for the speaker? Commissioner Sayak.
Mr. Laughlin, one of the suggestions that the applicant has proposed is planting, I believe, 12 or is it 15 trees between the garage and the fence. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
I really don't think it's going to make too much difference, and at least for 5 to 10 years, those trees that are there now have been growing there for 40 years. So, and new trees aren't really going to cover anything, and it certainly won't help with our view to the Santa Cruz Mountains.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Citizen Ray.
Yes, I'd like to speak on behalf of the residents. I've heard the arguments, previous arguments, and I've heard the arguments tonight. And if I may, I want to remind you folks on the Planning Commission what the general plan stipulates relative to new land use applicants coming in and trying to take over view sheds, okay? The general plan says it like it is, all right? That a new applicant must conform to an equitable solution. So what that means is a new applicant comes in, wants to take over a view shed, 100% no way. The best he can do, according to the general plan, is 50% takeover. 50%, all right? The existing neighbors get their share of 50%. That's the law. And under California law, for general law cities like Los Gatos, and this is a bit contrary to your opening statements tonight, the duty of the Planning Commission is not to listen for arguments from the town council that may fit the applicant's need. The duty of the Planning Commission, as per your sworn statement, to uphold the laws, is to make sure, through discretionary judgment, that whatever the applicant offers in their argument is 100% consistent and in harmony with the existing permitting documents. And the general plan is exactly that. That's your duty, not to follow any whim or imaginary course charted by the town council. That's absurd. with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, it's absurd. I'll give you a chance to think about that, okay? So, that's it. If you want to serve the people of the community appropriately, lawfully, and dynamically, follow the laws that are in place and all the public documents that are in place, okay? That's your charge, that's your duty, that's how a planning commission works in the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you, Citizen Ray. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, next speaker, I believe, is Joan Lungard.
My name is Joan Lundgarden, and I live at 193 Old Adobe Road and have for the last 49 years. And the garage, I see from my backyard, the present garage that was built there maybe in 1920 or 30. And the garage is in very bad repair now. And the owner stores his tall ladders back there and has stored wood and other things back there. Since he moved in, the former owner did not. And he wants to move that garage to the back of my neighbor's house, but I will see that garage from my patio. And my land is a little bit lower than the neighbors next door, so instead of 12 feet, I will see 15 feet of garage, which may or may not be covered by landscaping. And the landscaping there now is not attended to. There's a rotten apple tree there with the apples falling at my property. And my dogs, when I have them there, going after those rotten apples, and I've mentioned that to the neighbor. And he hasn't done anything about it, so I'm assuming that he will do nothing about the trees that are going to be planted there now for the next 50 years. And I object to the size, the height of the garage, and it's a monster garage with 3 cars and a huge area there that's going to be used for, I guess, his carpentry work or his business, which is contracting business. So I would like to see the present garage maybe taken down and a new garage put up where the present garage has been for the last 50 years.
Thank you. Does the Commission have any questions from Ms. Lungard? Seeing none, thank you. And the final speaker I have, if anyone else would like to speak, please get your card in now, is Mr. Kerry Pope.
Thank you. My name is Kerry Pope. I live at 120 Montclair Road in Los Gatos. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force. I'm the CEO of a medical device company. I'm the president of the Marshall Lane Elementary School PTA. And I, too, have buried a son. None of this, however, gives me the right to expect different treatment under the law. I've always tried to do the right thing. I believe others should try to do the right thing. In this case, I don't believe that the planning department has done the right thing. In multiple visits to the planning department and meetings with Ms. Mosley, it's become very apparent that she has a personal relationship with the Wagners, and I believe that it has biased her judgment in running her report to the planning department. My most recent visit, I pointed out to her that I believe that my taxes pay just as much of her salary as the Wagners, and her comment to me was fees pay her salary and not the general fund. So obviously there's a direct conflict. It's been implemented because of the way that the compensation for the planning department is administered, giving a bias towards larger property owners versus smaller property owners. In the staff report that was presented to the commission on June 24th, and I quote, "There will not be a significant visual impact to neighboring properties." Ms. Mosley never visited my property nor any of the adjoining properties. When I pointed this picture out to her, I asked, do you really believe this has no visual impact? There was no response. This building is not quite 11 feet tall at the corners. It's between 5 and 8 feet from the property line. The building, the art studio, will be 5 feet from the property line, and according to the plan, 12 feet 11 inches in height. When I pointed out to Ms. Mosley, her comment was, well, it's only 12 feet 11 inches at the ridge line. I asked the Planning Commission take into account the fact that along our 89-foot shared property line, a very short property line, that there will be 45 feet or 50% of that property line encumbered by living space, not just utility buildings, living space. And the question I have to the Commission is, would this application be viewed the same way if both of these buildings were being presented simultaneously for construction? I asked that the Commission direct modification of the planned placement of the art studio in one of the following ways. There are others, I'm sure. Lower the maximum roof height to 10 feet with a minimum 5-foot setback, further to the east if possible, but a 10-foot roof line would reduce the visual impact substantially. Or relocate the art studio with its current design unchanged so that it doesn't further impact our property line, threaten the value of our property. It can be moved across the lawn, although it was pointed out to me that that space is being reserved for a swimming pool. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pope. If you could stay at the microphone for a second. I wanted to confirm, because I was a little confused in your letter, you were talking about the 3-foot setbacks, and I just wanted to make sure that you understood that they had increased that to 5 feet and had the landscape strip. I just want to make sure you were aware of those changes and you had seen those plans.
I had received the letter from Mr. Wagner. That's correct.
Okay, and so your assessment is that that still is not adequate to mitigate your visual impact?
Absolutely not. Let me flip one more picture up here. This is my own attempt to demonstrate what 11 feet, 11 inches is. The height of this marker is exactly 11 feet, 11 inches, which is 1 foot shorter than what the plan shows. This is 3.5 feet on my side of the property line.
So that's 11 feet, 11 inches from your grade.
Which
is the same, or
it's the same. We have a level grade. I measured it from the side at the base of the patio.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Talasford, you have a question?
When you say level grade, is that across the entire yard, your entire yard, your level with the Wagners?
On this end here, the property starts to fall away. But from this point across, it's essentially level, yes.
And then they offered to plant trees.
Right.
Would that help you at all? I mean, how?
You know, certainly it's going to be better than nothing, but I strongly believe that stacking buildings up along a short property line like this is neither the spirit nor the intent. And this is an 829-foot variance, square footage variance that is being sought. If the art studio was not included, it's still 550 feet variance required. So the issue is the impact of architecture that it obviously is imposing in a small property.
Thank you. Do you have any additional questions, Commissioner Sayak?
Mr. Pope, if you wouldn't mind putting that picture back up. Now, one of the suggestions that you had offered both in your letter and just now is moving the art studio further to the east. Based on what your diagram is here, can you show me how much further to the east would be helpful for you?
We have, there's 18 feet based on the story pole that Mr. Wagner put up. And I'm assuming that is the westernmost point of the shed. I really don't know. I can't tell. Nor do I know exactly which trees are going to be eliminated or which tree is going to be eliminated. But that 18 feet starts right here. And I don't believe, based on what the Wagners has said about preserving the oak tree, which I think is a great idea, I don't believe they can move it far enough east unless they take their trellis out. And then, and I'm trying to be reasonable about this. I believe that the roof line adjusted down a couple of feet does not impact what they want to do, and it absolutely would minimize the visual impact on our property.
I have one final question, too. When this picture was taken, were the poles put up on their shed yet to show the height? Or was this picture taken before those were up?
It was taken today about 5 o'clock, so this is, you can see this is where the story pole starts to come up.
And I can't see it from here. Where's the top of that story pole?
Well, you can't see it. It's the top would be about here. But this is, so, yeah, I apologize for the quality of the picture, and I'd be happy to pass around so you can see.
Yeah, let's do that.
Want me to do that?
Great, thank you. While he's up here, do we have any other questions for Mr. Pope? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other speakers from the public? This is your last chance. Seeing none, I will call the applicant back up. Mr. Hayes, you have 3 minutes of rebuttal time.
Okay, we'll start with the garage. The garage that was shown by Mr. Laughlin as far as the story poles, those were on the fence. They weren't actually an accurate depiction of how that would be, since the garage is actually going to be 5 feet in from that fence. And so when he put that story pole up there, that was actually on the fence line, and then also with the, I don't know what it was, a white covering that would actually be 5 feet in. And then as far as the trees, that would help to mitigate the view to that garage. As far as the art studio, yes, if we were to move it more to the east, that would impact that oak tree. And of course, we don't want to lose that oak tree. It's a big, beautiful oak tree. And really the purpose of today's meeting was to address the concerns that were brought up in the last meeting. And those concerns were the building setbacks and the landscaping and the trees. And we've really tried our hardest to meet all the neighbors' concerns based on last meeting. And I feel that we've done that quite well. As far as the one more point, the Cabana building, that is merely a replacement of what was already there. There was a dilapidating building that was currently existing on the lot when the Wagners bought it, and they upgraded and replaced that building. And then, of course, the purpose of this whole project, the architecture, is the hacienda style, which is to create the courtyard effect, which gives that privacy to the neighbors and as well as the homeowners. That was the whole purpose of having these collection of outbuildings, which, quite frankly, are just replacing the existing buildings in a better location on the lot. Any questions?
Any questions? Commissioner Sayak.
I do have 2 questions for you. I'm looking at the plans, and the current garage is a garage basement underneath, if I read the plans correct. Is that?
I don't believe there's a basement. Oh, you mean the basement, the one attached to the house?
Right, it's an
Yes.
existing garage
Correct.
basement.
Correct.
Do you have plans to utilize that into a different, are you planning to use it for something else?
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to, yeah.
And then the second question was with regard to the art studio. You heard the suggestion to reduce the height to 10 feet. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, really, when you look at the distance that it is 5 feet from the property line. The building height at the wall is going to be 9.5 feet because you have your foundation that has to get it up off the ground, and then you have your wall height. So really the highest point on that building is at the roof peak, which is at 1211 actually. And it's sloping away from the fence line. Not to mention, it's going to be the tile roofing. You're going to have the trees to block the view of that building. In addition to that, it's well under the maximum allowable as far as the height, which is 15 feet for accessory structures.
Commissioner Erickson?
So is it not possible to increase the setbacks and still maintain the hacienda courtyard style? I understand what you're trying to accomplish architecturally, so...
I suppose you could, but where do you stop? We started at 3 feet, which was allowed, and then we were trying to accommodate the neighbors to 5 feet. It's starting to feel like it's running away here, as far as, how far we set it back from the fence line.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Erickson, or?
The homeowner could probably make a decision on that better than I would be willing to speak for the homeowner.
Sure, but there's parameters of the total property, and presumably you were hired as the expert to accomplish, to translate the concept into actual plans on the property. So I guess I would ask you, kind of, did you explore larger setbacks that would also accomplish, without worrying about whether they were 10 feet, 12 feet?
We explored a lot.
I get into a debate whether 5 feet is significantly greater than 3. 20 would be significantly greater than 3, but I'm not suggesting what it should be, just asking you,
Well, in the course of design, we talked about a lot of different locations for the buildings on the site, and we felt that these were the best locations for what the homeowners ultimately wanted to do with the landscape plan, which was to have some fountains and possibly a pool in there and just have more of a secondary private yard. If you start bringing buildings back into that yard, it takes away what we were actually trying to achieve, and that's the main reason why we took the garage out of that middle part of the yard, too. So if you start taking it in 10, 12, 15 feet, that disrupts the whole idea of that courtyard effect.
Thank you.
Commissioner Talasfor.
So, in regards to the art studio and the trellis that's behind the art studio and then the oak tree, did you explore perhaps reducing the size of that trellis, or in fact not having it, and then that way you could move that art studio back?
We did reduce it by 2 feet, and that was, one of the things to try to accommodate the neighbors, was by in reducing it by the 2 feet, we could actually move that art studio further towards that oak tree.
Doesn't seem to be a compromise yet.
Yeah, apparently not.
My question is, could you reduce the trellis even more?
I suppose we could.
And then that would snug the art studio.
If you reduce it much more than one of the factors, though, that it does affect is the usability underneath that trellis. And let's say we reduce it by 2 more feet. Now we've got an 8-foot deep trellis.
Well, could you put the trellis in the front? Because
That's a possibility.
Flat roof, and it could possibly, if you put a vine, it would, soften that whole architectural.
Right.
Could reduce it. I'm not trying to design, but it didn't seem that we were getting to that idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have one question. I'm a little curious about your process. So at the last Planning Commission meeting, you heard the neighbors' input, you heard the commission's input, and did you meet with the neighbors again after that? Did you run these designs by them? How did you come up with the 5 feet and the trees, and did you solicit input prior to this meeting?
Yes. The owner actually, we modified the drawings, and 5 foot was one of the suggestions in the last meeting, from what I recall. And then the homeowner and I had sat down, reduced the drawings to show you that they're 5 feet, sent out a copy to the neighbors as well as a letter to the neighbors. That was the Monday after the meeting. So there was a communication between the neighbors and the homeowner.
And did you get any feedback on that letter?
They sent the letter, or Mr. Pope, I believe it was, sent the letter back to the owner regarding the...
So Mr. Pope's letter was the only response you got?
Correct.
Were the letters mailed out, hand-delivered?
I believe they're hand-delivered.
Hand-delivered. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? I'm sorry, the public comment period has closed. I see some hands coming up in the audience, which is why I made that comment. So we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you very much. And we're going to open this up for commission discussion. But first of all, I believe Ms. Rooney wanted to make a few comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and commissioners. I just want to make a comment regarding Mr. Pope's comments to Assistant Planner Mosley's professional integrity. Marnie has worked for the city, or for the town, excuse me, for about a year and about 2 years. Her reports are reviewed by a variety of staff. They're reviewed by a senior planner. They're reviewed by myself. The land use process, as much as you try to apply very objective standards to it, there is some subjectivity to it. However, I have never seen our planners to ever have bias towards one project or another, and so I just wanted to comment that the projects has been reviewed by 2 additional people, and the department stands by its recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Rooney. I appreciate those comments. Moving on to commission discussion. So we gave direction last time to work with the neighbors to address their concerns, and we've now have a revised plan, and we've heard back from the neighbors. So I would invite my fellow commissioners to give me your thoughts or suggestions or motions. Commissioner Sayak.
Okay, I'll get the process started. I guess, to begin with, on the surface, when this first came to us at the last meeting, this is one of those projects where on paper it seems to be pretty straightforward. It's a remodel of a home. It's 1 story. It is basically the footprint remains the same. There's very little grading issues. The arborist issues are something that could be remedied. The issue, though, is a variance that from the floor area ratio of 6,000, and that's where I am having some difficulty. Because it requires a variance from that 6,000 max, there are certain design guidelines and standards which we must abide by to provide that variance. And in the staff report from the June meeting, they list, our staff report lists 9. And number 9 states that there will not be a significant visual impact to neighboring properties. And that's where I'm having the most difficulty, because as our planning director has said, we try to make this as objective as we can. However, there is some subjectivity to these processes. And if the neighboring properties are testifying at the last meeting and at this meeting that it's a significant visual impact, and they provide evidence with their pictures, and there's nothing that is at least brought to my attention that contradicts that, I don't see the basis for finding that variance. And so that's where I'm having this difficulty. The remodel itself, all the setbacks, as the architect has mentioned, the height for accessory structures, you're meeting it. You're meeting it at the 15 max. You're meeting the setbacks. But we have the larger issue of the variance from the floor area ratio. And the garage, as well as the art studio, that square footage that encompasses that variance. And so that's why I'm listening more to the neighbors, because they're telling me it's a significant visual impact, and I'm looking to see, well, how can I best say that it is or it isn't? Okay. And so based on what I'm hearing tonight, I'm leaning to say that I would not approve the variance as proposed in the staff report. And I welcome my other commissioners to speak.
Thank you, Commissioner Sayak. Commissioner Erickson, looked like you wanted to make some comments.
I guess I would concur. My concern would be similar to Commissioner Sayak's, and it seems like to me the larger number of square footage may relate to having to push some of the buildings closer to the to reduce the number of setbacks, which then in and of itself has a relationship to the visual impact. So the fact that one would be wanting to vary from the standard from the floor area ratio, and if you would put greater potential density onto the property, then with the kind of architectural design, then it causes them to force it out to the edge of the property, which then has an impact, potential impact on the adjacent neighbors, it seems like to me.
Thank you. Commissioner Talasford, would you like to make some comments?
Not, I would concur with what I've heard as far as the variance. I think, homeowners have a right to develop their property, and I fully support that. And yet, it seems here that we've heard from 3 neighbors. It's not just one, but now it's 3. And I know it's not a difficult piece of property, but challenging in that you border several properties. And actually, when I was looking at the plans and I went out there a few weeks ago, I failed to go out to visit the neighbors' yards, and so today I did. And somebody wasn't home, but somebody was in the house and let me through, so I hope that was okay. I guess the word I want to say is, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And so I was thinking, when I'm hearing about supplanting the impact by planting trees, I think that's probably, a good idea. But I don't know that they've worked with the neighbors on that. And when I hear that there's going to be trees that could grow to 20, 25 feet and then over the neighbor's property, and from one of the houses, there wasn't a significant amount of, there was house, yard, and then the fence. And I kept thinking about in the winter months how much shade would now be in the yard and how would that alter the quality of that yard. And so I'm not sure that the developer and the neighbors have really worked that out. I don't know that you've talked about trees that would work for you, and I'd like to see that happen if this does go forward. But I think at this point, that's my only comment. I do agree about the variance issue, that I don't think I could support it. But that was the only comment I wanted to make, is that we need to work more in kind with your neighbors on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Talasford. I believe the town attorney wanted to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, for the record, correct or at least point out, a number of commissioners have used the term variance, and I want to point out that we're not talking about variance with a capital V, but rather with a lowercase v, or more precisely, the application of the hillside guidelines, which in this case do apply with regard to the maximum floor area for the house, which is 6,000 square feet. The hillside guidelines do allow exceptions if certain findings are made. But those are the findings that the hillside guidelines require, not the findings that either state law or the town code requires for making a variance from the zoning code requirements. So I just want to point that out for the record.
Thank you. And just to be clear, to make that exception, we still need to make that finding of no significant visual impact.
That's correct. That is one of the findings required under the
hillside.
The primary finding required under the hillside guidelines.
Great. Okay, thank you. I'm also in agreement. I won't reiterate all the reasons my fellow commissioners have articulated so well. So it looks like we have a pretty clear direction here. If someone would like to put it in the form of a motion.
I'll go ahead and do it.
Commissioner Sayak.
If you could give me a minute to
Sure.
get notes together. Okay, so I move to deny architecture and site application S09005 at 14680 Quito Road, which is requesting approval to demolish a pre-1941 home to construct a new single-family residence to exceed the allowed floor area ratio and to construct 2 new accessory structures with reduced setbacks on property zoned R110. The primary reason for denying the application is because I cannot make the finding under the Hillside Design Guidelines and Standards that allow the exceedance of the maximum floor area ratio of 6,000, specifically number 9, which states there will not be a significant visual impact to neighboring properties. So.
Before I get a second, if I could just make one comment and perhaps open the public hearing for a little feedback from the applicant. that by making a motion to deny, if it were appealed, the likely result would be being remanded back to us for redesign. Do we not want to perhaps give the applicant another opportunity for redesign and see if that is their preference? If I could open the public hearing very briefly for you to answer that one question, whether you would prefer denial or a chance to work with the neighbors yet again.
We would like the opportunity to do some redesign work on this, on the project.
Great, thank you very much. So with that being said, I don't know if that changes your motion or if you'd like
Actually,
to.
it does. Thank you for that interruption. I do appreciate the applicant mentioning that. I wholeheartedly prefer a redesign versus a denial. So that being said, I withdraw the original motion, and then I now amend it to be, I move to send back this application, as mentioned earlier, at 14680 Keto Road, so that the applicant and the staff can work with the neighbors to come to agreement on the visual impact to the surrounding properties, that being the primary issue involved.
And while I have the applicant up here, we're probably going to continue this to a date certain, so I'd like your input on how long do you think you need?
We can shoot for 2 weeks.
Well, we don't have a meeting on July 22nd. We take one meeting off a year, and that happens to be that meeting. So August 12th? We don't have room on that agenda? Okay, so it would be August 26th is the earliest we could hear that. Is that acceptable? It's the earliest we can do it.
I think I have airfare
Yeah.
and hotel booked, but we can see what we can do on that.
Well, we could push it back further, September 9.
Yeah, September 9. Unless you want to do the talking. September 9.
September 9, okay. Thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing again. So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Tosfor. Any commission comments? Yes, Commissioner Erickson.
Could I just ask for the motion to be repeated again, if that's possible?
My understanding is the motion is to continue the application to September 9 and to allow the applicant an opportunity to further address the concerns of the neighbors and a redesign, which would be brought back to the commission.
Commissioner Tosfor, you had
I was just going to say, do you think we need to give more direction as far as what, or do we think that what we've said tonight would be heard?
I think it's pretty clear, but if you would like to have your comments added to the record, you can feel free. I'm sorry, Commissioner Erickson, you weren't quite finished, were you? Did you have another?
I was going to ask, if the specific concern is about one of the findings with the hillside guidelines, do we want to be that specific in the motion to be sure that we're providing clear direction to the applicant? And so that, I guess, a concern would be, out of respect to the applicant, I would hate to see them have general feedback, what they might interpret as general feedback, and then come back with another, I mean, they've already come back with another solution that we found unacceptable. So the clearer direction that we can give the applicant in terms of what our specific concerns are, the better chance that they have to meet those concerns. But I would, so that's a concern.
I understand that just speaking from the staff perspective, I understand that the concerns of the neighbors were the issues of visibility of the art studio and the garage. And those are the issues that would be, as I understood, the visual impact issues that would make it difficult to approve the project given the hillside guideline requirements for an exception to the square, the living space maximum. So I think that's the direction that staff would be working with, and that's the direction the applicant would have to work with.
If the maker of the motion and seconder could just confirm that, that would be great.
Yes, That's my understanding as well.
And mine.
Okay. Any other comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to continue this item to the 9th of September for a redesign for visual impact reasons, say aye. Aye. Passes 4-0.
Anyone following the application, there will be no additional notice of the public hearing, which has been continued to September 9, 2009.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, we okay? We don't need to take a break? Okay, moving right along. A new public hearing, item number 4. This is 325 Los Gatos Saratoga Road, conditional use permit U-09-002, requesting a CUP for a veterinary clinic on property zoned C2. Can we get a staff report?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The subject site is located at 325 Los Gatos Saratoga Road on the south side of the street, just west of Masal Avenue, not east like it says in the staff report. Sorry. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to operate a veterinary hospital out of a portion of the building. The veterinary hospital will occupy 3,237 square feet of the 4,924 square foot building. The property is located in the central business district, and the project complies with zoning and general plan requirements. The applicant is proposing to operate Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. As many of you are probably aware, this type of use sometimes does require staff to be on site to provide care for any animals that are being watched. They are not going to be open to the public beyond that, but as in the conditions of approval, there is a special condition to relate to those hours. Parking, there are 31 on-site parking spaces and an additional 4 parking spaces that are located in the parking district. This allotted parking would limit the veterinary clinic to a maximum of 4 doctors, with the densest use of the rest of the space factored in. According to the International Traffic Engineer numbers, the proposed use would generate an additional 9 trips per day, with an AM peak increase of 9 trips per hour and a PM peak increase of 7 trips per hour. The applicant will be required to pay a traffic mitigation fee of $5,205, and it is the town's policy to require an applicant to provide community benefit for any increase in peak hour trips above 5. The desk item you received this evening pertains to this portion of the application and should shine a little extra light on staff's analysis of the community benefit as the applicant is proposing. Staff believes the additional services and programs that the veterinary hospital takes part in will be a significant benefit to the community. In conclusion, the application complies with all zoning requirements and meets several goals and policies within the general plan. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the application subject to the attached conditions. That completes staff's report.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of staff at this point? Commissioner Telesfor.
Right now, there's both left and there's left turns in from both. Excuse me. Going east down Highway 9, there's left turn arrows into both driveways of this property. Is that correct?
I'm not 100% sure of that.
I think well, that's what I saw today. So
okay.
Well, all right. Well, wasn't a trick question. Do that to you. I wanted to make sure that. Okay. Would there be any? Is there any thought given to changing that at all, so that it's one left turn instead of possibility of 2?
Traffic flow of the parking lot was not something that was reviewed in this because
it wouldn't be a traffic flow. The reason I'm asking is because of the impact to Highway 9 traffic and introducing, more trips into that parking lot. I guess no.
I don't have the ability to answer that question.
Thank you.
Engineering would have been better to answer that.
Okay. Sorry.
We can check with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Erickson.
Since I'm the new kid on the block still, can you give me some history or precedent, or maybe other commissioners who served longer than I have, of other examples when the community benefit has in fact been the business that, not that that's, not that, I'm not suggesting that's unacceptable, where it has been, in fact, the business that is being proposed to be used in and of itself as the community benefit.
Oh, or you-
Well, I know Ms. Mosley is going to answer that question, but I do want to give you a little bit of history about the community benefit policy. And I was educated by Lee Bowman, who was the planning director at the time the policy was first decided on. And at that time, years ago, when traffic impact was considered a major consideration in the approval of projects, the town's traffic impact policy was considered draconian, and projects that were considered to be of benefit in and of themselves to the town were being denied because of traffic impact. And so the idea of a project demonstrating community benefit was developed as a way of basically getting over the hurdle of traffic impacts that were a necessary component of projects that were considered valuable in themselves to the community. So it does have, in fact, it does derive, in fact, from the notion that the project can have an inherent value to the community that doesn't have to be something that is just offered in addition to the project, though the policy has sort of morphed in that direction. Its origin didn't reflect that.
In researching that, Vice Chair's question yesterday, I did talk with some of the other staff, and we did uncover that the hardware store on University Avenue, in the 500 block of University Avenue, I don't have the address on hand, when they went through their A&S approval, they also were applying for a conditional use permit for a restaurant there as well, but they ultimately left that off the table. But through the A&S, there was community benefit that was supposed to be required, and the Planning Commission did approve that application with the consideration that the improvement to the lot itself was community benefit enough to meet that increase, according to the staff report. Yes, sorry.
If I remember correctly, I thought it was the solar aspect and the green building aspect of that project.
That was also one of the things that was shown on there.
So, I'm sorry, continue.
I was just saying, I could only go back to the staff report as far as what they were justifying.
Yeah, Commissioner Erickson, I'll just make a quick comment because that was an issue that concerned me, having been doing this for about 4 years now. I know we've had other applicants come up and say the business in and of itself is a community benefit, and we've not accepted that on some occasions. And so as a fairness issue, that's why I asked Ms. Mosley to look into it a little more, and why I had the language of the resolution provided to us tonight. So do you want to make an additional comment?
I guess I was so we had another project on University Avenue, the storage facility, which if it's so, and in that particular instance, the community benefit was not the business itself, which arguably could be if you follow Mr. Korb's logic, could have been the community benefit. So I guess I was trying to understand in what circumstances does one then require a community benefit other than the value of the services or that are inherent in whatever the activity that's going to be in the use of the land.
If I may. There is a naturally subjective aspect to this policy. And it is very, as I said, when the policy was first considered, there was a concern that there were projects of great value to the community, or at least that were perceived as such, that were being denied because of the traffic impact. You may perceive a project in itself as having a value to the community, or you may perceive a project as not having such a value. It's really the applicant's initial determination regarding what they want to argue is the community benefit of their project. They may not think that, using the University Avenue project, for example, that mere storage would be a strong enough argument. and thus look for something in addition to that to offer as a community benefit. Others may think that their project in itself, either visually or based on the use or a combination thereof, may justify arguing that it is a community benefit, and then ultimately it's up to you as the commissioners to make that call. It's not a question, I agree, it's a question of fairness to some extent, but it's ultimately a question of your judgment. You may say, a storage facility in itself is not a great benefit to the community. There are plenty of others. A veterinary facility is different. Maybe there aren't plenty of others, and the community can use that. But again, that's up to you to make that call as the commissioners.
Great, thank you. Any other questions of staff at this time? All right, seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing and ask the applicant to come forward, but I have no cards. So if you wish to speak, I need you to fill out a card and pass it over to staff. I see several people in the audience. I don't have any speaker cards. So the applicant is Hillary Wheeler. And if you could just fill a card out when you're done, that would be great. So you'll have 5 minutes. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, stating your address.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Dr. Hillary Wheeler. I'm at 1053 Wallace Drive in San Jose. And I will be the primary doctor at the facility we hope to open on Highway 9. In terms of community benefit, obviously, we like to think that the service we offer as veterinarians is a benefit in and of itself to the community. However, going above and beyond that, something I've been involved with for many years now is speaking at local career day programs and participating in educational fairs to educate the community and help them understand better the animal health care field and encourage students to pursue that in their own educational pursuits. We also do get involved with local rescue organizations and provide low-cost or discount services for groups that qualify to provide adoptions and second chances for animals in need. We also do plan to offer discount programs for senior citizens so that they can adequately seek out excellent health care for their pets. And we do plan to be involved in any of the local town events, such as the parades and the farmers market events and any of the animal charity events that are hosted by the town of Los Gatos. And I do believe, just in terms of, this is off the subject, but traffic concern, I do believe there's a middle turn lane on that section. Okay.
Great, so that concludes your
Yes.
comments. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Telesfor.
Yeah, there'd be how many doctors
To start, just myself.
at the facility?
Just one to start and one part-time,
So is that the 15 per day appointments?
hopefully. Yes, that
And
would be.
so what do you hope to grow to as far as?
We plan to keep the hospital fairly small. We don't expect to exceed 2 to 2.5 doctors. So it'll be
So
mostly.
how would that increase the appointments per day?
We would probably never have more than 2 doctors at one given time, so it may increase the appointments per day by 5 to 10 maximum.
Okay, so that would be 25.
Right.
And no kenneling? Is
No
that-
kenneling.
And could I ask one other question? May I?
Sure.
Follow-up is, when you have patients requiring overnight care, is it only overnight care that you will, is it just overnight? They don't stay for 2 overnights, or?
Well, it depends on the patient. That would apply only for patients that need continued medical care. So I guess an example of that would be an animal that requires IV fluids for several days, and so some of those may need to stay for several nights to continue their fluid therapy. Critical patients, we're lucky enough to have an overnight emergency facility in Campbell that we would send those to, and those are patients that need someone watching them closely 24 hours a day.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Commissioner Sayak.
Dr. Wheeler, you heard our discussion on community benefits and the different questions that were raised to staff. Understanding how a veterinary clinic would be a benefit to the town and the services that you would provide yourself, you mentioned like the career day programs and such as, those would definitely I guess those are practices that would definitely make you stand out and make people go to you, and hopefully you can financially profit from that. But looking at other things that would not necessarily, I mean, I'm looking for something else in the community benefit aspect that would not directly impact your business. Have you given much thought to that, knowing that this was an issue that staff probably had raised and that commissioners would be looking at?
Sure. I think I understand what you're saying, that what we do with community reach out, that you probably perceive it as trying to bring business to ourselves. Most of what I've done has been outside of the area where I have worked in the past, so that's never been a main concern to me. It's been more just volunteering my efforts to the community. In terms of the structural changes, the building itself, I don't know if you've seen it, it's very nicely landscaped. We plan to keep that maintained. We plan to create a memorial garden in the back along the rear patio where people have the opportunity to sit with their animals, and especially in more painful situations where they're contemplating euthanasia. So we do plan to offer services such as that, and obviously not for our own benefit, but for the benefit of the community, for the people who come to the clinic. We'll also be offering more integrative health care options for people who are seeking out alternative treatments for their pets. So some of that, absolutely, some of that is hopefully will allow us to sustain as a business, but most of that is to provide something novel to the community.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Okay. Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don't venture too far. I do have a speaker, sorry. So anyone from the public that wishes to speak, do so now. Citizen Ray, you're up.
Yes, indeed. Couldn't resist the opportunity to speak to a subject that is entitled Gatito Incorporated. Little cat. Oh, yeah. Beautiful, okay? Appropriate for Los Gatos. However, the main point, I want to thank the town attorney for making it so crystal clear to Mr. Erickson the history of community benefits, okay? He said it exactly like I remember it, okay? It was a way to sweeten the pot, to get more out of the applicant without any nexus to the particular application, the use or whatever. Total Los Gatos absurdity. Total. The woman said it beautifully, as far as I'm concerned, about the very fact they're going to open up here as a public service. As a veterinarian, why wouldn't she say that? That's perfect. Me, as an animal lover, resonates with me. So how can you look for mere dollars or mere Christmas tree lights or whatever as a community benefit from a land use applicant that wants to open a veterinarian service to serve the community? I mean, I come down here, I'm telling you, I get so sick of the corrosion and the corruption that I experience down here. Sick! Mr. Erickson, I hope you're understanding what's going on here. You always have your hand to your face as if you're concerned, or you're in a mood of consternation. You should. If you have any ethics, you should. The way this town is going. Approve it, please, for the good of the community, and don't try and squeeze something else out of these folks. If you do, you're going to hear about it from me. I'll guarantee that.
Thank you, Citizen Ray. Any other member of the public wish to speak on this item? No. So, Dr. Wheeler, you can come back up. You have 3 minutes to make any closing remarks or rebut anything you've heard.
I don't have much else to say. I just, we look forward to being able to be a part of the community and hopefully provide, hopefully something above and beyond what other people in the area have provided in terms of animal health care. I hope to see all of you with your pets.
Thank you. Please stay put for a second. Any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing. So, before we get to commission discussion, I actually have a question of staff. Just to be clear on the community benefit, what is the threshold for triggering a community benefit, and where did this applicant fall on that threshold?
Any new use that increases peak hour traffic by 5 or more trips, or more than 5 trips, I believe is the wording.
And I believe this applicant was increasing it by 7?
By 9 in the AM and 7 in the PM.
9 in the AM. Okay, great, thank you. All right, I'll open it up to the commission. Commissioner Talasfor, I saw your hand first.
All right, thank you. I think it's probably a very good use that you're applying for, but I think what really concerns me is just the traffic issue and those 9 peak and 7 peak hours. That's a very, and I know there's a left turn lane there, there's a wait turn lane there, but it's a very heavily traveled road. And in fact, what happens is that in that particular place, all the 2 lanes funnel into 1 lane, and it just causes the potential for many accidents. So, and we've done, between Los Gatos, Montezurino, and Saratoga, we've done a lot to improve the safety of that area on Highway 9, especially that area. For bikers, there's a crosswalk and everything else. So what I'm concerned about, especially with this increase of trips and everything, is how we could possibly mitigate entering, egress, and exiting that driveway, because today I saw arrows that went both ways. And while I was waiting at Massal to turn left on Highway 9, which I never do, by the way, I just have to tell you, this is why this is coming to me. I happened to experience, I had 2 people make U-turns right in front of me. One that went over the median with his car, and the other woman who held up 2 lanes of traffic. So I know that this has been a real issue for years for us. It's not just because of your application, by the way. And I do remember that we spent a long time talking about the new development at the corner of Highway 9 and Massal. And we encouraged that there would be a business there that would not be an active with cars. And it's a bank that's there now, but it's not a public bank. It's more of a commercial bank. On the other corner, the businesses are also not active either. And this is going to definitely be a much more active place. So my concern is that we as a commission and a town do what we can to make the ingress and egress safe or safer. And I don't know how we can do that. So I'm very concerned about that. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not sure whether that means I'll support this or not until I can. So I don't know what is that. That's my comment, and I don't know where that leaves us.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Erickson.
So I would say to the fellow commissioners and to the applicant, I think the project is very worthwhile, and I don't have a problem with the project at all, and I don't necessarily have a problem with the community benefit, but I do want to use it as an occasion to help me understand how we should apply this, and so I have a question, if it's okay, Mr. Vice Chair, for the staff. So if I read the community benefit policy, in the third paragraph of the purpose, it says a community benefit offering shall be something that otherwise would not have been required by law or as a condition of approval of a project. So then, in order to, if I understand correctly, one of the findings that we have to concur to issue a conditional use permit is that it's consistent with the general plan. And so one of the ways we would do that finding would be with policy 1 LP13, which is that it encourages economic and social activity that's consistent with a small scale, with a small town, which is in fact saying that if we're saying that it seemed like to me if we're approving a veterinary business, that it's meeting the general plan, that section of the general plan, and that's a condition of approving it. So I can't understand, I'm having trouble understanding how it would be something that is not, that it would in and of itself also could be the community benefit when it's required, when it's not something that's in addition to something that's required.
If I may.
Please.
I think the intent of the language of the policy was to address requirements to mitigate impacts of the project. So, for example, if a project will have a particular traffic impact such that it would require the improvement of an intersection. I'm not saying that that's something that is required in any situation here, but just by example, the intent of that language of the policy is to say to the applicant, the mere fact that you're required to mitigate an impact associated with your project to do this intersection improvement cannot then be argued as a community benefit. You can't use that traffic improvement as your community benefit. But your project itself may have great value, regardless of the traffic impact and the improvement at the intersection in and of itself. I think that's the point of that legal requirement. For example, CEQA. If you have a project and you analyze it under CEQA, there's an impact on the environment. That impact has to be mitigated. It may be a mitigation that people would look at in a vacuum and say, wow, what a great community benefit. But it's legally required for the project. Thus, it cannot, under the policy, be a basis for finding that the project has a community benefit. I think that's what it's saying. It's attempting to distinguish between things that you're legally required to do in order to go forward with your project and things that are inherently or added, if that's something that the applicant chooses to do, to the project above and beyond what is legally required. And I understand your point, but I think your point is a little, and with all due respect, hyper-technical. The general plan requires that a project be, meet certain general plan requirements, but those are generalized requirements. A veterinary, it doesn't have to be a veterinary clinic. It could be a pharmacy. It could be many things to meet that general plan requirement. But there could be something inherent in the specific use that's recommended or that's desired that you may find to be particularly beneficial. One more example besides a veterinary clinic would be, somebody could say we need, we don't have appliance supply stores in the town, and as a consequence, people have to drive out of town if they want to buy appliances. And if somebody wanted to propose an appliance supply store in town, there may be decision makers who say, wow, what a great benefit to the community.
That answer your question?
It continues the education of the new commissioner.
As it does for all of us on community benefit. Any other commission questions, comments, motions? Commissioner Sayak.
Actually, I do have one question of staff. It falls along the lines of traffic. Highway 9 and Massaul, that intersection, I've constantly heard just discussion about the traffic and the potential safety issues. Is there an ongoing study or ongoing project that is being examined, or is that just something that's just hyperbole that I hear?
Planning is not aware of one.
Okay.
I think you do know, and there was reference to the fact that there was a project, there has been a project to make certain safety improvements along the entire length of Highway 9 from the town through to Saratoga. That's the extent of it to my knowledge. Remember, it is a state highway. town property. But I do believe this project was reviewed by the engineering department, and they have raised no specific concerns regarding the traffic impact, creating any specific traffic problems.
Commissioner Telesfor.
So to follow back up on that, I don't mean to keep rubbing this, but so would there be, I just keep thinking that I wish we could, have the left turn be into one driveway and not another. Do you know what I'm, and the one that would be further away. I would just.
I hear what you're saying. I think the point that I was trying to make is that the engineering department has looked at it, and they don't see a safety problem associated with the traffic, additional traffic that will be produced by this project through ingress and egress from that particular site. So you have the option of continuing the application if it's the wish of the body, if you want to get more input from engineering. Or we can address that question separately just to get you more information offline. But you have to make a decision on the application one way or the other.
Any other questions? All right, I'll make a few comments while my other commissioners are pondering motions. I think this is a great application, but like Commissioner Erickson, I'm getting hung up on this community benefit. The way we've applied it in the past, we have not usually accepted aspects that are inherent to the project as community benefit. It's always been something above and beyond what was expected. And if you look at the town council policy, it's pretty vague, but you can kind of read it either way. But that's the way it's been applied since I've been on the commission, and so that's what I'm getting hung up on. And I have a question for staff, because when I was on site, a community benefit, just a very obvious one, kind of popped into my head, and I just don't know if it was explored. And that is, we've heard so much about the Bay Tree and the condo conversion and the parking, off the street parking, and their properties are adjacent. And when we heard that condo conversion application, one of the suggestions was contact the adjacent businesses and see if they can provide after-hours off-street parking for visitors. And the properties are adjacent. It just seemed like a natural fit, and I just don't know if those communications ever happened from the Bay Tree end, or if that was something that was discussed in this application.
It was not. After your comment the other day in regards to that, I did bring it up at staff meeting, and there was some strong concerns in regards to that from other staff members. I don't know if Ori wants to talk about liabilities or anything in regards to that.
Because I don't know the detail, I won't address it. But what I will say, once again, is the manner in which the policy has been applied is not mandatory in every application. The question in any application is there a benefit provided by the application, whether it is provided in addition to the benefits of that particular use, or argued in the nature of the use itself. You have the discretion to decide it either way. What you don't have the discretion to do is to demand that the applicant give something to the town, pay something to the town, build something for the town outside of the impacts associated with that specific use. There's no nexus for that. We can't require it. Now, again, if you're going to say you don't see the benefit in the veterinary use, then that's a fair basis for denial or for requesting more.
And just to state the obvious, this doesn't set any sort of precedent for future community benefits and future applications.
Every application is reviewed individually. That's correct.
Commissioner Telesfor.
So in the staff report, it says that the applicant will be required to pay a traffic mitigation fee of $5,205. That's directly because of the increase in per traffic trips.
Yes, and perfect example of a legally required mitigation that cannot be considered a community benefit.
Thank you. That's where I was going with that. Okay.
That number is applied to the average daily trips, so they're a little different. The community benefit is applied to the peak hour trips. The traffic mitigation fees are applied to the average daily trips.
Oh.
All right,
I
Commissioners.
am worried about a precedent setting because we have in the past required community benefit that was above and beyond.
Can you put your concerns in a motion?
I don't know what kind of a motion I would make. I think it's I think the business is a wonderful idea. I have nothing against that at all. I'm just, for the sake of being consistent, I think we need to look at it. I don't know if I'm ready to make a motion.
That's fine. Does anyone else have any comments, or is anyone else prepared to make a motion at this time? Need a little more time, huh? Okay. Commissioner Talsfor, you have a question?
Can we discuss here what another community benefit would be? Was there any discussion? Could I ask staff?
No.
Thank
You cannot do that.
Thank you. I just,
We would want to continue the item. If you're not satisfied with the community benefit, we should probably continue it and have them propose something else. Commissioner Erickson.
I guess in the letter of justification provided by the applicant, they did point out the supply-demand imbalance in town in terms of that. So it seems to me that we've got a small impact from that we're trying to judge the community benefit from, and there seems to me to be a significant community benefit to me to responding to the imbalance in supply and demand to the town. So that I would be of the opinion that in this particular case that the community benefit is inherent in the proposed use of the land, given the evidence that there is in terms of the imbalance in supply and demand.
Is that a motion?
Let me make a turn that into. But I say that's.
Microphone, please.
That would be my interpretation. So I wanted to be clear about. I was trying to understand how to think about this issue. I wasn't really necessarily contesting whether it was a reasonable community benefit. Was trying to understand how to. So just
understood. I think we've had plenty of discussion on this, and I think we need to find out where the commission is, and best way to do that is a motion. So. Commissioner Slack, have you given more thought to the community benefit aspect while Commissioner Erickson is? Okay, Commissioner Erickson.
Okay. I would move that the commission approve the conditional use permit application U0902, and that we, based on the findings that the project is categorically exempt from the state environmental guidelines, and that we have rendered the required findings for an additional use permit as required by Section 2920-190 of the Town Code for granting such a conditional use permit, and that and to highlight in that in fact the proposed use of the land is the sufficient community benefit.
Thank you. And do I have a second? Commissioner Sayoc.
I'll second the motion, and if the maker of the motion will agree, I'd like to call out other items that I'd like to specifically highlight as community benefit. The first is, as also contained in the letter of justification, the availability of low-cost vaccinations, which I hope will be readily advertised to many members of our community. Also, the career opportunities available with the veterinary clinic, and making that opportunities widely known to the local schools within the district. And also the applicant's mention of participating with chamber activities and town activities, and all of those town activities that we see our merchants at, and that they're actively participant with.
Thank you. Commissioner Talsfor, you want to make a comment?
I will support the motion, and probably because this is, I know we lost a veterinary clinic, and so this would be replacement, and I think that I could find that as a community benefit.
All right, and I will reluctantly be supporting the motion. I think it's a great project. I struggle with this community benefit every time it comes up, and I think it's a great project, and I do think it will be an asset to the community. And the threshold that was triggered was just barely triggered. So, given the scale of the impact and the inherent nature of the project, along with those items Commissioner Sayoc mentioned, I'll be supporting the motion. So let's go ahead and call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously.
Appeal rights.
Appeal rights.
Anyone dissatisfied with the decision of the commission may appeal the decision to the town council. An appeal must be filed within 10 days. It must be filed upstairs in the clerk department. There are fees for filing an appeal.
Thank you. Moving on. We have no continued other business. New other business. Do we have a report from the Director of Community Development?
I do. I have 3 items for you. First off, we've already discussed the fact that the July 22nd meeting has been canceled, and I just want to state that for the record. We also have a community meeting that's coming up on August 8th. That's the next community meeting for the general plan update. This will be a fun and exciting meeting. We're really hoping to get a lot of community participation. We'll be doing what's called a visual preference survey. It's where we'll take everything we've learned so far and try to see how that you can visualize that. In other words, dog parks or incorporating youth-oriented activities into development and things like that. So we'll be showing a series of probably, for each of the 4 focus areas, anywhere from about 15 to 25 slides of each of those areas, and then the participants get to rate them as to whether they'd like to see those in the community. So it should be a lot of fun. We really look forward to that. I think that will be from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And
that's a Saturday, correct?
Saturday, yes.
Yeah.
And where will it be held?
At the neighborhood center, in the large room at the neighborhood center.
And before you move on, I believe there's also a General Plan Advisory Committee meeting tomorrow night at 6 to discuss that event.
There is.
So the public can be aware of that as well.
Absolutely.
And that's open to the public, too.
And we're actually going to be previewing the presentation, too. And lastly, 15500 Francis Oaks, the 2-lot subdivision that the Planning Commission denied, I think it was your last meeting, was appealed to the council, and that will be heard on September 8th. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Most importantly, after about 12 years of employment with the town, Marilyn Cosden, our administrative support secretary, will be retiring. And we are having a cake social for her at 3 o'clock on Monday, the 13th. That's her last day. 3 o'clock, yeah.
And where will that be?
That will be right up
in
the lobby, yeah.
Well, on behalf of the commission, we all thank Marilyn's constant support.
Yeah.
She's been a great asset to me personally, so I'm sure I'm not speaking just for myself. So
She's
very difficult.
She knows everything.
I know.
Yeah.
Extremely difficult shoes to fill. It's we brought in an interim staffer who actually came from Gilroy, who was laid off from Gilroy, and she was the planning secretary in Gilroy, and so she's been here for that's been probably about 3 weeks now. So she's learning as fast as she can, but that's a lot of experience to try to pick up on. So.
And what's her name?
Cindy Taylor.
Cindy Taylor.
Yeah, she'll probably attend the planning commission here or there.
Okay, great, thank you. Any commission matters? Seeing none, this meeting's adjourned.